Imagine waking up one day as an ordinary guy, only to end up brutally stabbed, reincarnated in a fantasy world, and transformed into a total slime. This is the story of Satoru, a completely average 37-year-old guy living a perfectly routine life in Tokyo. His only real complaint in life is that he's always been single. Other than that, everything was smooth sailing. On his way to work, he bumps into his younger colleague, Yamato, who is out with his girlfriend, and calls him over so they can walk together. Satoru warmly greets them and suggests grabbing breakfast before heading to the office. But right then, disaster strikes. A hooded stranger comes sprinting toward them out of nowhere, wielding a sharp knife. Spotting the attacker charging straight at Yamato, Satoru shoves his colleague out of harm's way in a flash and takes the fatal blow himself. The killer vanishes into the crowd while Satoru collapses to the ground, pooling in his own blood. As the extreme blood loss sets in, he begins to hallucinate. Burning up from intense heat, he desperately wishes for the scorching sensation to go away. Suddenly, something strange happens. A mysterious void-like voice echoes in his mind, instantly converting his final thoughts into active skills. The first ability he acquires is flame resistance. As Satoru continues to drift off, his fleeting wishes keep turning into new powers, like pain nullification and cold resistance. But the two most crucial abilities he unlocks are Great Sage and Predator. With his strength completely drained, Satoru closes his eyes, accepting his death. Suddenly, he snaps back to consciousness in a strange, dark place. He can tell he has a body, yet he has no limbs, can't see, and can't speak a word. Over time, he adapts to this weird sensory state and slowly puts the pieces together. Satoru has been reborn as a slime in an entirely different world. He begins crawling around the cave, sensing his surrounding environment. Before long, he discovers just how special his new slime body really is. He doesn't need to eat, drink, or even sleep. He starts absorbing the cave's native plants purely out of boredom, even though he has no physical need for food. That's when his Great Sage skill kicks in like an internal voice, answering every question in his mind. Great Sage explains that using his Predator skill, he can store all these absorbed plants within an infinite internal space. Even better, whenever he ingests a living creature or plant, he can analyze its unique traits and replicate its powers. For instance, he can refine the cave herbs into top-tier healing potions. Having nothing better to do, Satoru continuously devours herbs and turns them into potions. Suddenly, without paying attention, he plops straight into an underground lake. To get himself out, he devours a massive amount of water and blasts it backward, propelling himself through the water like a jet. However, the propulsion force is a bit too strong. He zooms across the cavern uncontrollably until he slams hard into a massive barrier. Right then, an imposing voice echoes through the cave, asking who dared enter his domain. Since Satoru can't speak or see, he's stunned to realize this mysterious entity can read his thoughts directly. The creature is equally amazed that a simple slime possesses such high cognitive abilities, and he's thrilled to finally have someone to talk to after a long, lonely spell. He offers to teach Satoru a skill that will allow him to see, but on one simple condition. Satoru must not run away in terror once he sees what he looks like. Satoru agrees, learning Magic Sense, a technique that lets him perceive the density of magicules in the air. As his vision clears, Satoru gazes upon the entity speaking to him and freezes in sheer terror. Standing right in front of him is a gargantuan, legendary dragon. Horrified, Satoru considers breaking his word and making a run for it, but the dragon pleads with him to stay, confessing how terribly lonely he's been. He introduces himself as Veldora, the Storm Dragon, one of the 4 true dragons of the world. Talk about luck, Satoru. The very first creature you meet in your new life happens to be one of the absolute strongest beings in existence. Veldora shares his backstory, revealing that 300 years ago, he was bested by an immensely powerful human hero who sealed him inside a magical barrier that holds him captive to this day. Satoru confides in Veldora, explaining that he used to be human until he died and suddenly woke up here. Veldora explains that otherworlders, like him, do exist. Some are intentionally summoned through magic circles, while others accidentally slip through dimensions. However, Satoru is a complete anomaly, as Veldora has never heard of anyone being reincarnated into a new body like this before. After chatting for a while, Satoru prepares to leave, but notices Veldora looking deeply saddened. Satoru reflects on how tough his own few days of isolation felt, realizing how unbearable 300 years of solitude must have been for the dragon. Summing up his courage, Satoru offers to be Veldora's friend. Though Veldora's dragon pride almost makes him hesitate, his yearning for companionship wins out, and he happily accepts. Satoru hates the idea of his new friend remaining trapped in this eternal prison forever, especially after learning that Veldora's magical energy will fully deplete in a century, leading to his death. Satoru consults Great Sage to see if there's any way to break the barrier. Great Sage reveals that the only only solution is to fully consume the barrier, but it can't be broken from the outside alone. It requires an active attempt from the inside as well. Satoru proposes a daring plan. He will devour Veldora along with the barrier into his stomach, analyzing and breaking it down from the outside while Veldora attacks it from within. Veldora bursts into a cave-shaking laugh at Satoru's sheer audacity. Realizing he'll die anyway if he does nothing, Veldora entrusts his entire physical form to Satoru and agrees to the plan. Before they begin, Veldora suggests they exchange names to forge a soul-bound connection, much like what humans call a family bond. Satoru loves the idea and bestows the surname Tempest upon Veldora, symbolizing the storm. Thrilled with his new name, Veldora Tempest returns the favor by naming Satoru Rimuru. The new name engraves itself onto Satoru's soul, permanently making him Rimuru Tempest. With everything set, Rimuru stretches his slime body and devours Veldora along with his imprisonment barrier in seconds. The sudden disappearance of a mighty true dragon doesn't go unnoticed by the human kingdoms, especially the kingdom of Blumend, which relied heavily on Veldora's terrifying aura to deter invading monsters. We cut to a high-ranking minister meeting with the guildmaster to address the crisis. The guildmaster notes that their only option now is to send an official reconnaissance team directly into the cavern to investigate. Unaware of the political chaos he just caused, Rimuru casually wanders through the cave looking for an exit. Along the way, he absorbs monsters and acquires amazing new powers, like Water Blade, which he uses to effortlessly slice through a giant serpent. By devouring the snake, he gains its skills and realizes he can transform into any creature he ingests. For 2 straight weeks, Rimuru hunts down cave monsters, absorbing their capabilities. After consuming a bat-like creature, he gains ultrasonic waves, finally enabling him to speak aloud. Eventually, he arrives at the cave's massive exit door. Just as he considers blasting through it, the door swings open and 3 human adventurers step inside. They are the first humans Rimuru has seen in this world, but he quickly hides in the shadows to avoid a fight. He waits until they venture deeper into the cave, then slips out into the lush forest, overjoyed as the warm sunlight hits his skin. Before long, Rimuru stumbles upon a small tribe of goblins. Their bodies are malnourished, and their weapons are completely broken down. Rimuru assumes they are about to attack, but to his surprise, they bow down and address him as Great Lord, asking if they can serve him. Rimuru tries to speak naturally, but his raw voice alone unleashes a massive shockwave. Terrified by his overwhelming aura, the goblins bow frantically, pleading for mercy. Seeing how politely he responds, the goblin leader gains the courage to ask for a favor, leading Rimuru back to their village. Upon arrival, the village chief greets Rimuru with supreme reverence. Perplexed by their submissive behavior, Great Sage clarifies that Rimuru is continuously radiating a terrifying aura ever since he devoured Veldora. Rimuru immediately suppresses his aura, allowing the goblins to finally breathe a sigh of relief. The chief explains that ever since Veldora disappeared, the local monsters have become hyperactive. A brutal pack of dire wolves recently attacked their village, slaughtering most of their kin and leaving only 60 able-bodied fighters behind. Seeing Rimuru's incredible power, they beg him to protect them. Feeling sympathetic toward their desperate plight, Rimuru agrees to help. Overjoyed, the goblins bow down and swear absolute loyalty to him, officially making Rimuru their new leader. Rimuru immediately identifies their biggest issue, their small numbers and frail bodies compared to the ferocious wolf pack. He orders them to build a sturdy wooden defensive perimeter around the village. As night falls, the dire wolves charge under the command of their ruthless leader, intent on wiping the goblins off the map. Reaching the perimeter, the wolves assume the wooden fence is a flimsy barrier they can easily smash through. Rimuru steps out and warns them to turn back or face total annihilation. Mocking the idea of taking orders from a simple slime, the pack presses the assault. Instantly, they run into a deadly trap. The goblins rain down arrows while razor-sharp steel threads, crafted by Rimuru himself, slice through the advancing wolves. Seeing his pack get slaughtered, the dire wolf leader furiously charges forward, shredding through the traps to get to Rimuru. But just as he lunges, sticky steel threads bind him completely. In a chilling display of dominance, Rimuru effortlessly decapitates the leader to strike fear into the remaining pack. Hoping to end the battle without further bloodshed, Rimuru devours the leader's corpse, analyzes it, and shapeshifts into a giant dire wolf. Unleashing a terrifying, venue-shaking howl, he demonstrates absolute authority over the pack. Overawed by his power, the remaining dire wolves submit completely, bowing down and accepting Rimuru as their new alpha. Rimuru's original goal was simply to scare them off, but the wolves begged to stay under his protection. Rimuru accepts and integrates them into the village. Noticing that the numbers of goblins and dire wolves are roughly equal, he pairs them up into duo units, boosting their bonds, making them stronger, and allowing each species to cover the other's weaknesses. Realizing he doesn't know any of their names, Rimuru asks the goblin chief about it. The chief explains that low-ranking monsters don't possess individual names. Rimuru decides to give every single one of them a name on the spot. The entire village bursts into wild excitement, though Rimuru doesn't quite understand why. The chief nervously asks if he is truly sure about naming everyone at once, and Rimuru casually confirms it. The monsters line up in a long, ecstatic queue as Rimuru names them one by one, noticing a strange magical glow engulfing each monster as their name is bestowed. After naming all the goblins and over 100 dire wolves, Rimuru suddenly feels an intense wave of exhaustion, and his slime body begins to dissolve. Great Sage instantly forces his body into sleep mode due to a critical drain of magicules. Great Sage explains that naming monsters, who are inherently lower ranking than him, permanently consumes his magicule reserves, which was why the chief was so worried. Rimuru remains completely unconscious for 3 full days while the villagers carefully nurse him back to health. When he finally wakes up feeling fully restored, he is in for a massive shock. During those 3 days, everyone in the village underwent a mind-blowing transformation. He is greeted by the goblin chief, now named Rigurd, who has transformed into a towering, muscular powerhouse, a stark contrast to the frail old man he was 3 days ago. Every single goblin has evolved into a hobgoblin or goblinina, and the dire wolves have evolved into tempest wolves, growing significantly larger. Their pack leader, now named Ranga, sports a majestic horn in the center of his forehead. Realizing that great power attracts even greater danger, Rimuru gathers the entire village to establish 3 fundamental rules. First, never attack humans, because humans are organized and hurting one will bring an entire army down on them. Plus, he used to be human himself. Second, no fighting among yourselves. And third, do not look down on or belittle other races. Everyone accepts the rules without hesitation. Next up is solving their basic necessities: food, clothing, and shelter. Food is easily handled by sending hunting parties into the forest, but their housing is a disaster. The goblins are downright awful at construction. Rimuru asks Rigurd if he knows any skilled builders nearby. Rigurd mentions a nearby dwarf kingdom filled with master craftsmen and builders, adding that the goblins had previously tried trading with them. Rimuru decides to head there himself to recruit proper talent. Appointing Rigurd as temporary leader of the village, Rimuru sets off for the dwarf kingdom alongside Ranga, a squad of tempest wolves, and a few hobgoblins. The armed nation of Dwargan is a strictly neutral kingdom where all races, be it humans or monsters, can trade freely, backed by supreme military power and ruled by a wise, formidable king. After a continuous 3-day journey, they approach the city gates. Rimuru takes only Gopta with him since he's the only one who has visited before. As they stand in the long multiracial queue, a group of arrogant human adventurers approaches, mocking Rimuru and Gopta for being weak monsters. Thinking they can get away with murder outside the city walls, the adventurers draw their weapons. Angered by their arrogance, Rimuru transforms into a massive wolf to intimidate them. Unfazed, the adventurers launch offensive magic at him, but the spell fails to scratch a single membrane of his body. Rimuru counters with a terrifying wolf howl, generating a pressure wave so intense that everyone nearby collapses to their knees while the bullies run for their lives. The dwarf guards rush over to investigate the commotion, finding only a harmless-looking slime. They promptly arrest Rimuru and Gopta, locking them in a holding cell. Inside, Rimuru meets Kaido, the captain of the guard, and explains the full story, clarifying that the humans initiated the conflict. Kaido believes him since it matches witness statements, but before he can release them, his assistant rushes in with urgent news. Kaido's minor friends were ambushed by a deadly monster deep in the mines, leaving them critically injured. Worse yet, they have no high-grade healing potions left to save them. Hearing this, Rimuru instantly produces a full barrel of top-grade potions from his body. Kaido grabs the barrel without hesitation and rushes to his comrades. Moments later, Kaido returns with his fully healed friends, deeply indebted to Rimuru for saving their lives. Kaido releases Rimuru, takes him out for dinner, and asks how he can repay the massive favor. Rimuru explains his situation, mentioning that he is looking for master craftsmen in construction and tailoring. Kaido assures him he knows knows just the man and leads him straight to the finest blacksmith in the nation, his older brother, Kaijin. Kaijin meets Rimuru and warmly thanks him, revealing that the miners Rimuru saved are actually his young apprentices. When Rimuru asks if Kaijin would consider relocating to the goblin village to handle their manufacturing and building, Kaijin reluctantly declines. He explains that he is currently trapped in an impossible predicament caused by a corrupt government official named Vesta. Vesta demanded 20 enchanted swords within 5 days under the pretense of an impending war. So far, Kaijin has only managed to craft one, and Vesta has threatened to ruin his reputation forever if he fails to meet the deadline. To make matters worse, the mines lack sufficient magical ore to forge the rest. Hearing this, Rimuru steps in and asks to examine the single completed sword. After inspecting it, Rimuru devours the blade, analyzes its composition, and uses the magical ore he stored back in the cave to replicate 20 flawless, top-tier enchanted swords in seconds. Everyone in the shop is left completely speech-bound. Thanks to Rimuru, Kaijin delivers the full order way ahead of schedule. Overjoyed and endlessly grateful, Kaijin takes Rimuru and his crew out to celebrate at an upscale night establishment run by elves. As they enjoy their food and drinks, the corrupt minister Vesta suddenly barged in, demanding to know why Kaijin is wasting time when he has a massive order to fulfill. Kaijin coolly informs him that the order was delivered hours ago. Stunned and humiliated, Vesta looks around for something to pick a fight over. Spotting Rimuru, Vesta loudly demands how a low-level monster was allowed inside and pours a glass of juice directly over Rimuru's head. Rimuru keeps his composure, knowing that striking a government minister would cause massive trouble for Kaijin. Kaijin, however, refuses to watch his honored guest be insulted. He steps up and delivers a majestic, knockout punch right across Vesta's face. Hitting a minister is a severe crime, landing Kaijin, his friends, and Rimuru straight in prison to await a royal trial. Inside the cell, Kaijin apologizes profusely for dragging everyone into his mess, but his loyal friends assure him they are in this together through thick and thin. Kaijin admits to Rimuru that the moment he hit Vesta, he knew his time in this kingdom was over, officially accepting Rimuru's offer to join the goblin village. Kaijin then opens up about his history with Vesta. Years ago, Kaijin was a high-ranking military commander, and Vesta was his chief aide. Vesta, a researcher, oversaw an experimental magic armor project that went horribly wrong, resulting in a massive explosion that wiped out the entire lab. To cover his own tracks, Vesta pinned the entire disaster on Kaijin, forcing Kaijin out of the military. Ever since, Vesta has held a bitter grudge against him. Yet despite it all, Kaijin admits he never truly hated Vesta, knowing that beneath his toxic jealousy, Vesta was once a passionate and hard-working scholar whose envy simply blinded him. The day of the trial arrives, presided over by King Gazel Dwargo himself. In royal trials, no defendant may speak without explicit permission from the king, leaving Kaijin's party reliant on their court-appointed defense lawyer. To everyone's horror, the corrupt lawyer immediately pleads guilty on their behalf, painting them as dangerous criminals who assaulted a government official. The entire trial is a rigged theater performance. Vesta even feigns severe, exaggerated injuries. Taking the bait, the high priest sentences Kaijin and his group to 20 years of hard labor in the mines. And that brings us to the end of Season 1. Thank you all so much for watching and following along with the journey. If you enjoyed this series and want to see us dive right into Season 2, let's try to hit 100 likes on this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with future recaps, and drop a comment below letting me know who your favorite character was this season.